Hi, my name is Doug Ferguson, and today I'm just going to share something pretty amazing, I think pretty amazing in the book of Genesis. Now, a lot of people always talk about, the end times and all this, and they're always talking about, that they know the end times and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. But I think it's really important to see the testimony of what happened in the past and to see God working and doing things in His Word and it playing out in history, just to give people an understanding that our God knows what He's doing, He's in control, He's got it planned. And I think that's really important for people to understand that. And so I'm not going to be doing a thing about telling you about what's going to happen in the future, but actually I think what I'm going to be talking about I haven't explored it enough to find out yet, but there's some amazing things. Okay, so you probably heard in Genesis, in Bereshit, the book of Bereshit, like it's in Hebrew it's Bereshit, many amazing things, especially if you look in the Hebrew about the letters and the numbers and so forth. For example, the hidden word Torah, spelt forwards for the first two books of Moses, and then in the middle, the hidden name Yahweh in the middle book, and then for the last five books of the Torah, the hidden name Torah, spelt backwards. Maybe you've heard about that. And so you have the two books, and before Genesis, I think, and Exodus, and then you have Numbers, and then you have it goes Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and then you have Numbers and Deuteronomy. So you get it shows, I think, even a purpose that all these books were written by the same fellow. I think that's the real purpose of this point. And I think that it was put in there for that purpose, so that the same fellow wrote the five books in the Torah, because he put that kind of a signature in there. Now, there's things in there that even the writer, who I believe is Moses, he's the guy that really put these books together, that even he couldn't see, that we could only see with computer things, and some of the things are just so incredible, just so much to think about. But anyway, here is another amazing thing about the book of Genesis that I want to share, and it's about Abraham and his life, or Abram, he turned his name, and also about Jacob and his life, and then for more even history. And there's a lot to do with Isaac in there too, which I haven't really explored a lot, but I think there's some really amazing prophecies in the life of Isaiah, Isaac, in the life of Isaac, that needs to be explored. I haven't explored it enough yet. But okay, so the basic idea is you have Abraham's life, and it shows a prophecy of Israel. And then Isaac's life shows the prophecy of the new, like after Christ came. So I haven't explored that yet, but I can see it happening. If you might be able to explore it and come up with and see the patterns that God put in there. Now, the big thing is that you'll see, so you got Abraham's life, you got Isaac's life, and then you got Jacob's basically life to the end of Genesis, and then Joseph dies. So that's, and then there's much before Abraham, but I'm just going to be talking about that section, Abraham and Isaac and then Jacob's life, and Israel, basically. So I think you're going to just find it pretty amazing to see the patterns in there, the sequence of events that are shown in comparison between Abraham and Jacob's life, and as it turns into Israel, the nation of Israel. So, and then I'm going to show you something that's going to be pretty cool. I don't, to me, it's just a really something amazing, but to look at. Okay, so if here's Abraham right here, and his name changes to Abraham, which means the father of many nations, and Abram is the father, basically. And here's Jacob over here. Jacob, his life turns into Israel. Then you get and Israel's a nation. Okay. So if you look at their lives, Abram starts in this the city of Haran. Now it's amazing to even why the place is called Haran. To look into that. Remember, every name in the Bible has huge meaning. So you should look up the names, understand the names. They do have amazing meanings, and you really learn a lot. Like even for the 10 patriots, or 10 fellows like Adam, Seth. I wish I had them all memorized. Like there's Jared, and there's Methuselah, and Lamech, and a whole pile of guys. But they have, their names mean such a thing. And if you find out the names about them, it has a story right in there about salvation in their names. And the 10 guys, like up to Noah, from Adam to Noah, is a story of salvation in their names. So you just look at those. It's another amazing thing in Genesis. So you have Abraham. He gathered his family in Haran, and that's where his father Terah lived. And he also takes Lot, and his wife is Sarah. And you can read that in Genesis 12, 5, and 6. Now, you'll see that these are all sequences, 12, 5, and 6, and then here we go, 12, 6, 7, 8. It's all sequential. It happens in the same order, which is, see how it's all sequential? Okay. And you'll see it in the same on the other side, sequential. Okay. Then it's Genesis 29, 30, 31, 1 to 20, and then you get Genesis 31, 32, 33. It's all sequential, so it's happening in the same order, that's the amazing part. It's not twisted around. It's not anything like that. Anyway, so here you have Jacob. In his story, he starts his family in Haran too, and then he takes his family to Canaan, just as the same as Abraham. Okay. And you can write, and he has 4 wives, or 2 wives, and 2 servants of the wives, and then through all that he has 12 sons. And you can read that in Genesis 29, 30, 31, 1 to 20. Okay, and the next event that happens, they travel to the great tree at Moreh, at Shechem, and Abram pitches his tent between Bethel and Ai. So Bethel, that's the house of God. That's the name, means Beth is house, and El is God, and Ai is it has another meaning too. You should look at that. And then they continue to Negev territory. That's an area in southern Israel, and you can read that in 12, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and you'll see that the same thing happens to Jacob. Jacob he's chased by Laban, that's the guy he stayed at Haran, and later meets Esau, his brother, he's worried that's going to kill him. And then he travels, but because of that, he travels to Shechem, goes a different direction than Esau. And then he buys land and pitches his tent in Shechem area, and later moves to Bethel, and Jacob's name becomes Israel before he meets Esau, though they use, and that's Genesis 1:31, 32, 33, and so you have the same thing happening there, doing the same thing here. Okay, then there's a famine in the land for Abraham. So Abraham enters Egypt, and that's Genesis 12:10. And for I don't want that to happen. Boy, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is good. Okay, so then not quite really good. I think there we go. Okay, so then, sorry about that. Sometimes it's funny. Okay, so then we were at there's famine in the land. Abraham enters Egypt, and then there's famine in the land. I thought I could do this, but okay, famine in the land. So Israel enters Egypt. That's Jacob, or the whole nation of Israel enters Egypt. It's Genesis 43, 44, 45, 46, and that's all, to do with the famine and Joseph, and then we have Pharaoh treats Abraham well because of the beauty of Sarah, and that's Genesis 12, 11, 15. And so here also, the Pharaoh treats Israel well because of Joseph. And that's because Joseph saved the nation of Egypt and predicted for the flood, or for the dryness, or for the famine in the land. Okay, so now we have in Abraham, let's see here. In Abraham, the next part, Abraham goes rich in Egypt, Genesis 12:16, and in the other part, for Jacob or Israel, the people of Israel grow rich in Egypt, Genesis 48, 49, 50. Okay. And then the next part, Pharaoh is inflicted with plagues because he covets Sarah. It's Genesis 12:17. And here, basically the same thing. Pharaoh finds the people of Israel worrisome and enslaves them and murders their male babies and so forth. He wants them to be the slaves and take their stuff that they've gotten there, and that's Exodus. And then we're into Exodus now. We're out of Genesis. We're at the time of Moses. So Pharaoh is inflicted plagues because of the covenant. Okay, so that's Exodus 1. There's Pharaoh finds that Israel. If you read it, you can get the same idea, because Pharaoh covets Sarah, and this other one, Pharaoh covets that Israel is going to take over the nation, and he's just worried. So he wants all their stuff. So he wants to keep them enslaved. So, and then Moses flees, and there's a story in that, and returns to Egypt to lead them out of slavery. Okay, so and then God inflicts the plagues onto the land of Egypt. That's Exodus 2 to Exodus 12. Okay, and then Pharaoh sends Abram and Sarah out of Egypt at Genesis 12:18 to 20, and they take in this one too. The same thing happens as Abraham is given a bunch of gifts, and he says, okay, get out of here. I don't really want you anymore. And then in this same thing, Pharaoh expels Israel out of Egypt, and the people of Israel, they get a bunch of, they basically are given lots of plunder by the Egyptians to the people that are leaving Egypt, to the Israelis. Okay, same thing happens, and then Abraham journeys into the wilderness of Negev. That's Genesis 13:1, and you'll find the same thing happen here. Israel journeys into the wilderness of Negev, and you'll find that in Numbers 13 and in Deuteronomy. Okay, so we're moving along. We've got, this is, we're out of the book of Genesis already, and we're into Numbers and Deuteronomies in the time of Moses now. So the book of Genesis wasn't even talking about Moses at this point, except as this prediction thing of Abraham's life. It goes way beyond that. So finally, I did it again. Finally, Abraham settles his tent between Bethel and Ai. And that's Genesis 13, 2-5. And we find the same thing happens, that Joshua takes possession of the land. So now we're out of the books of the Torah and we're into the book of Joshua. Okay, so we're moving along. This is the same pattern. This is what we're talking about, the nation of Israel on the right, and we're talking about Abraham's life on the left. There. So here we go. Okay, so now here's something next. The quarrel arises between Abraham and Lot's herdsmen, and the locals in the land. So there's people in the land, like the locals are still there, and there's quarrels between Abraham and Lot's. Okay, so now we have Genesis 13, 6-9. Now, here we have the quarrels arise, and the tribe of Judah and Israel form two kingdoms. So we have, we'll call Abraham's the kingdom of Judah, and we'll call Lot's kingdom the kingdom of, in this case, of Israel. So they're forming two kingdoms in the land. Okay, so you see that pattern there. Then Lot chooses the plain of Sodom and Gomorrah, Genesis 13, 10-13. Okay, so in Israel chooses the way of Lot. It's the easier way, and turns from God, Kings and Chronicles, both those books. Okay, and then, oh no, I guess that's not going to work. Okay, so God renews the promise to Abraham, Genesis 13, 14-17. And during this time, we get Ezekiel renews his promises even for the whole nation, even for Israel. Ezekiel renews his promise with the whole nation of Israel and with Judah, and that's in 2 Chronicles 30 and 31. And you'll see, you can read that in there. Okay, so and they turn back to the Lord. They renew their promises to God and everything, and God renews his promise to Ezekiel. There's a lot of promises going on during the time of Ezekiel. That's when, like, Isaiah lived, and many great prophets. So there's a lot of things happening. God renews a promise to the nation of Israel. Okay, so now we have Abraham moves to the great tree at Marim at Hebron, where he builds an altar to the Lord, Genesis 13, 18. So we have a great dedication back to the Lord, basically, right in there. Okay. Now here's something that happens is we're getting close to the time of when the nations around Israel are gathering because of and if you read the prophets, there's a lot of worry that because Israel and Judah are not following the covenant, they're turning their back from God, that they're they're losing their status with the nations around them, basically. And you see the same thing happening here. God judges the nations around Israel, and the prophets warn Israel and Judah. Like Isaiah laments, even during the time of Ezekiel, and that the people of Judah are to be as the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. And there's Isaiah and Jeremiah. All the prophets, a lot of them are living during this time, and they're lamenting the judgment of Judah and Israel during this time. And at the same time, the kings in the north, these are all kings in the north. They're like from way up from the city of Ur to all around the Mesopotamian basin, those between the two great rivers in that area. They're all gathering to cause the problem with Israel. So, and then you have these 4 kings from Mesopotamia make war with the 5 kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Almad, and Zimbolim, and Bela, that is Zor. That's a small place. But anyway, so, and that's Genesis 14, 8 to 12. Notice still, we're all in sequence here. It's all sequential. It's crazy. Anyway, okay, so, and then, so we have the kings from the area in Mesopotamia, Syria, and from, they come down and they campaign against Israel, and you can read about that in 2 Chronicles 32 to 36 and 2 Kings 18 and 35. So, and you can, you know, like there's a lot of history in these foreign countries too about all this that they've unearthed. And so after the battle, they take the people of Judah into captivity. Even like Babylon finishes it off and takes them to into Babylon, into the kingdom of Babylon, or with Nebuchadnezzar. And before that, the Syrian king takes Israel into captivity. They destroy Israel. Okay, so then we have Abraham learns of the battle after several days and sets out to save Lot from captivity and pursue the armies further than the territory of Damascus, and recovers everyone and the possessions. So, and that's Genesis 14, 13 to 16. So you have that in chapter 14 of Genesis, and it's not just a little campaign. Like we always we think that Abraham just took 300 and some guys up there, and he went up there and it was a weak thing and he's back down. No, it's not a little campaign. He has to go way up to past Dan, the place of Dan, and that's just way up by almost to Haran, way up north. It's almost to into the Tigris, beginning of the Tigris and all that. So it's not just a little thing that he has to travel to get his son, his nephew back. So it's not just a little distance, and takes quite a while. We think it's just a few verses there, but no, it's quite a campaign for him to go up there and get his brother back, or his nephew back, and all the possessions there. So, and in this case, it's Abraham being, he's always considered like a prophet, or the spiritual head of the nation. I mean, he is considered the spiritual head of everything, of all the whole religion, and we have to have faith like Abraham. So this is the idea that he's a prophet, and in captivity, the prophets of Israel lead the people out of captivity, and that's you have all the people like Ezra and Nehemiah and Daniel. They're getting, because of their service and their desire to follow God in captivity and to be humble about it, they get a chance to reestablish, call to the kings of that area and reestablish through through Cyrus and other kings, get to take the nation of Israel back into back to Israel. And you'll see that in 2 Chronicles 36, 22 to 23, verses 22 and 23, and in Kings 24 and 25, 2 Kings 24 and 25. Okay, so now when they get back, they come to, this is the time when there's Melchizedek, which is the king priest. The king, Melchizedek is basically a king priest. Anyway, he's the king of Salem, which is king. Everybody considers that Salem was really the precursor name to Jerusalem, and blesses Abraham with communion bread and wine, and Abraham honors Melchizedek with a tenth of everything. So you have a reestablishing of the nation and a reestablishing of communion with God in Genesis 14, 17 to 21. So that's what happens after they come back from captivity in both cases. And here you have the rededication and building of Israel. So they rededicate the temple and they build the nation of Israel in Nehemiah chapter 13 and in that area of time. And then you have the king of Sodom wishes to take the glory of the restoration of the people of the land, Genesis 14, 21 to 24. And you get people trying to help, like the people of Tyre, the king of Tyre trying to help Israel reestablish itself so that it can say that it basically is wonderful, and but they do help anyway. The people of Tyre provide goods on the Sabbath, which is not really right, and for the Levites to purify themselves from foreigners. So the Levites are basically saying, no, we don't want any of your help from Tyre, and the Tyre is like the kingdom of Sodom and Gomorrah, kingdom of Sodom, trying to take some glory, but the Levites are acting like Abraham says, I don't want any of your stuff, but that's kind of the parallel there. Okay, you'll find that in the story there. So then you have Abraham laments that he has no promised son through Sarah, and she desires for a son but is impatient and coerces Abraham to consummate with her Egyptian handmaid. Okay, so and you'll find that for this whole time that they come back, they're all lamenting. Israel laments for the people of Israel to have a promise before they even go into captivity and after. And I think the book of Job was probably adopted into Jewish literature as a canon at that time, because it does a lot of lamenting for justice and the promise that the one who intercedes and restores. There's a lot of that in the book of Job, a lot of lamenting about the injustice and the want for justice. And Jeremiah laments. This is a time of lamenting and wishing that, for the restoration and the repentance of Israel. So this is the time, and this is what's going on. Parallel in Abraham's life, they're lamenting. They don't have a son yet, and when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And here you have all the prophets doing the same thing. They're lamenting. How come we're always under this thumb? And when are we going to actually be restored to what we should be? And so you have all the prophets doing that, the same thing. And then they decide that they kind of have they want to have an earthly kingdom and an earthly glory, so they're going for that, and which is the same thing as when they have Abraham. It comes into Hagar and has Ishmael, and a nation. This is the natural nation of Israel reborn after returning from captivity in the Gentile land. So then we have Genesis 16, 11 to 12. it's all about the same thing. And Abraham being, there's a big thing here too with his age being 86, because 8 is a new beginning and 6 is the age of a man. So they're having a new beginning after the captivity, but it's really a man's beginning. It's not God's beginning, but it's man's beginning. So even his age of Abraham, when he has Ishmael, his first son, to Hagar, even his age kind of tells you what's happening at this point in history, which is the point in history in Israel, in the sequential thing here. We're talking in Israel here. So here we go. Then we have the Lord appeared to Abraham at his tent at the oaks of Mamre. So these oaks at Mamre, they're very important. It's a holy place. And Abraham asked for them to eat with him, and the Lord promises Abraham and his descendants, but judges Sodom to be annihilated. Okay? And Abraham's tent represents the tabernacle or the temple, if you want it. And this is Genesis 18. So here we have the same thing. Jesus actually, this is the time of Jesus now. Jesus came to Israel and gave the promise to create a people who love him. And he has the communion meal with his disciples. And whoever saves his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. And that's in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Okay, now remember this. This is Abraham's life is all in Genesis. This is like written 1400s or even longer, like the prophecy, like his life. Abraham lived like almost 2,000 years before Jesus came to earth. So, but here we're now at the point where Abraham's life is in parallel with the time when Jesus comes to earth, to Israel, and it's recorded in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Just get your head wrapped around that. And the Lord promises, he talks about how the nation of Israel would be judged, and even like when he's walking to the cross, he says, don't weep for me, weep for your children, because you guys are going to be in bad shape. And basically he talks about the destruction of Jerusalem at that, while he's walking to the cross, and before that, but no, he didn't do it when he's walking to the cross. So he's talking about Sodom and Gomorrah going to be annihilated, and he says to the people of Israel, if Sodom and Gomorrah saw what you guys saw, you would be, they would have repented. There's a lot of parallels between Sodom and Gomorrah and the nation of Israel. There is. There's a whole pile of comparisons. And at this point, that's what they're talking about. Okay. So, and Sodom and Gomorrah, after Abraham's gone, he's met with God. And after that, then Sodom and Gomorrah is annihilated. But Lot is saved with his 2 daughters, but his wife dies. The old church dies. And the daughters are incestuous with Lot and have children. Okay. So, and then we have in 70 AD, Jerusalem is destroyed by the Romans. And the old religion with sacrifices dies. That's like Lot's wife. But 2 incestuous religions are born from the descendants, one in Babylon and the other in Egypt. It's just incredible, really. So, and then Abraham spends time in the land of the Gentiles, and there's also King Abimelech, and he does what he does. He says, hey, this is my sister. Okay. And because of that, there's for a bit of time, there is the king Abimelech. He doesn't have any children. He just doesn't have, nothing's happening. It's very sterile in that time. I should have written, anyway, I should have the Genesis part. I'm sure it's like Genesis 20. Anyway, and the birth of, this is getting close to the birth of the Gentile and Jewish Christian churches. Okay. So, yeah, here we go. King Abimelech is informed by God in a dream that Abraham is not, and he also sees that Abraham is being nice to Sarah, and he asks why Abraham lied to him that Sarah was his sister. Okay, and that's in Genesis 25 to 1 to 5, and Abraham and Abimelech restore their relationship, and Abraham blesses Abimelech, and Abimelech, and you know, if you look at the name Abimelech, it's got an aleph, probably Beth, and then it's got Melech. So Melech is kind of kingdom, and so it's got like that. It's like if you look at the first two letters of the Hebrew alphabet, Abi, like you get the Father and the Son. Some people, anyway, listen to John Kostek. He talks about the letters of the alphabet and their meanings, and so this name is really important. Even this name, and his household are healed after Abraham blesses Abimelech, and that's Genesis 26 to 18. Okay, so I don't really have everything written here. I should have written here. Israel loses their homeland and live in desperation in the land of the Gentile churches, Beersheba. So yeah, there's a whole pile of stuff. I really kind of skipping this over, not as well as I should have. But anyway, Sarah has her promised child Isaac at this time. Okay, and this is when the new Jewish church starts forming, and this is in Genesis 21, 1 to 8, and Sarah sends out Hagar and Ishmael, okay, from her presence, okay. So that's the remnant of the people of Israel who don't really believe in Christ. They get sent out too, and they live in the land of Beersheba, or with the Gentile churches. All of them live with the Gentile churches, really, in the area of Gentile churches. And Ishmael and Hagar stay in Beersheba, which is it represents the area of the Gentile churches. Beersheba is the covenant there, and it's the covenant of 7, Beersheba. So, and there's a really important thing going on there, which I'll get to in a second. And there's a bunch of stuff there. I'm not really covering it as much as I should. I'm just giving you kind of a real fast overview. This is in Genesis 21, 9 to 21. And so we have everybody, Israeli, losing their homeland. They live in desperation. And they live in the land of the Gentile churches, Beersheba. Okay. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Beersheba here. Abraham and Abimelech make a covenant at the well of the 7 lambs, ewes or lambs. The well is called Beersheba. So there is a covenant, and Sheba is 7, and it's essentially with talking about the 7 lambs And I'm like, what's he? He says, what's all this the lamb thing? But Abraham says, don't worry about it. Just take my lambs. Just take my lambs, he says. You know how the wow represents Jesus and the lamb the churches. And that's Genesis 21:28-34. So, and we find that the churches are all bickering over the well of salvation. That's what's going on. The same thing. The churches and the Jewish church are all, the Gentile churches and the Jewish church, are all bickering over salvation. What's going on here? And this is actually a hook into the book of Revelation. You notice the book of Revelation starts with the introduction with the seven churches. Okay? So, at the seven lambs here. This is actually the book of Genesis. Get your mind on this. This is actually the part in Genesis hooking in to the very last book in the Bible, to the book of Revelation. Just think about that. Because that lamb, like, just meditate upon that. Just take some time to think about how Abraham's life and his time when he makes peace with the Gentiles and blesses them and gives them seven churches, seven lambs in the place of the Gentiles. And the seven churches. Just think about that. And then think about how the book of Revelation starts off. How does it start off? It starts off with the seven churches. Okay. I just find that it's like, okay, anyway, just take a look and just read, when you read in Genesis and Abraham's life, just take a little bit of time and see. And this is all in sequence. This is all sequential. Like what happens to Abraham's life, what happens to Israel. Okay, and we're not even getting to Isaac's yet. Like, but there's a little bit here. Here's another little part that hooks into Isaac in Genesis. Abraham takes Isaac to do the burnt offering. Okay, now we're kind of in the book of Revelation. And the next thing right after the seven churches, okay, right after the seven churches, then you have, in the book of Revelation, it talks about the lamb that was slain taking up his position of authority. And that's what this burnt offering is. Actually, the burnt offering is talking about Christ taking your sins, and then you don't actually hear about Isaac for a while in Genesis until he finds his church. Okay, so and there's a reason for that. It's just, anyway. And then we have the book of Revelation, where right after the seven churches, we have, I got my kitty cat here. Anyway, she's come over to have a look. Anyway, you have, like there's, the Revelation song, and all the people gathered around the throne, and the lamb going up to the mountain and taking his position of authority. Anyway, I'm going to end it there. I went like zippity-doo-dah through here, but I reckon just when you're reading it, just have a look and just see if you can see the similarities. I just find this incredible. I'm not even getting to the life of Isaac yet, which is talking about, like, after this, like what's going to happen till when Christ comes again. I'm pretty sure that's what it's talking about in Isaac's life. So, and I haven't spent enough time meditating on it. Maybe God will enlighten you and give you something that, something that you can share. But I just think that it's really important that we think about what God has prophesied in Genesis for thousands of years after the book was written. Now, this is our God. Our God is like that. So, people are worried that, oh, what about me? What about, just stay close to God. Cleave in the cleft of the rock. Believe God. For God is good. God is amazing. And just take time to just see how he does things that are so beyond any. He is the creator. He's the one that knows you from your before you were born, and he sewed you together in your mother's womb. Like, our God is totally awesome, like beyond what you can even imagine, and I can imagine. And he promises to resurrect us so we can have eternal life with him. Like, it just boggles my mind. And he took all the pain and suffering that we laid upon all our iniquity upon him, so that and he's forgiven us for all that, just so that he could have a relationship with us. Like, really, try to get your mind around. I can't get my mind around the whole thing. It's just, our God is so awesome beyond understanding. His ways are so higher than us. But just meditate upon some of the things I hear. I don't know if you caught all what I just said about in Genesis, but just take another read of Genesis and think about what I just wrote. And if it makes sense to you, you'll see, wow, our God is an awesome God. And you'll be giving glory to God. Like, this God, there's so many things in the Word that are just too fantastic to, it just says so many awesome things about our God. So I just wanted to just leave that with you. May God bless you, and maybe this little talk will help you know the power of God in the world and to not be afraid. That's the big thing. Don't be afraid. God's there. He can handle everything. God bless.